The weight of silence pressed against my eardrums as I stood beside Jack, my husband's hand cold and lifeless in mine. Marianne's funeral was a stark reminder of how quickly life could change, how swiftly love could be snatched away. The church pews creaked with the shifting weight of mourners, their black attire a sea of grief. I glanced at Jack, searching for a flicker of emotion in his stoic face. Nothing, his jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the mahogany casket adorned with white lilies, Marianne's favorite. How could he be so detached when we'd just lost the woman who'd been more of a mother to me than my own? "Eva," a gravelly voice whispered. I turned to see Robert, my father-in-law, his weathered face etched with sorrow. "There's something you should have." He pressed a photograph into my hand, the edges worn and yellowed with age. I recognized it immediately. Marianne and me, laughing at my wedding reception. My throat tightened as I ran my thumb over her beaming face. "Turn it over," Robert murmured. Frowning, I flipped the photo. Scrawled in Marianne's elegant handwriting were 4 words that made my blood run cold. "Unveil the truth, Eva." I looked up sharply, but Robert had already moved away, melting into the crowd of mourners. My heart raced as questions flooded my mind. What truth? And why me? "You okay?" Jack's voice startled me. I quickly slipped the photo into my purse. "Fine," I lied, forcing a weak smile. "Just overwhelmed." He nodded, his expression unreadable. "Let's go pay our respects." As we approached the casket, I felt a sudden irrational urge to run. Something was wrong. The air felt thick, oppressive, as if the very walls of the church were closing in around me. "Marianne was like a mother to me," I whispered, more to myself than to Jack. "I can't believe she's gone." Jack's grip on my hand tightened painfully. "She wasn't your mother, Eva. Remember that." I jerked away, shocked by the venom in his voice. "What's that supposed to mean?" Before he could answer, we were interrupted by a stream of well-wishers, their condolences a blur of platitudes and awkward embraces. I plastered on a smile, all the while acutely aware of Jack's eyes boring into me. As the service drew to a close, I found myself drifting towards the back of the church, desperate for a moment alone. I slipped into a small alcove, fishing out the photograph with trembling hands. "Unveil the truth, Eva." What did Marianne know? And why hadn't she told me while she was alive? "There you are." Jack's voice made me jump. I hastily shoved the photo back into my purse. "It's time to go to the cemetery." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As we walked out into the crisp autumn air, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. At the graveside, I watched as they lowered Marianne's casket into the ground. Each thud of dirt on the lid felt like a blow to my chest. I glanced at Jack, expecting to see some sign of grief, but his face remained impassive. "I can't do this," I choked out, stumbling away from the grave. "Eva!" Jack called after me, but I kept walking, my heels sinking into the damp grass. I found myself in front of a weathered headstone, my vision blurring with tears. A hand touched my shoulder, and I spun around, half expecting to see Marianne's kind face. Instead, I found myself staring into the concerned eyes of my father, Paul. "Daddy," I whispered, collapsing into his arms. "I've got you, sweetheart," he murmured, stroking my hair. "What's going on?" I pulled back, wiping my eyes. "I don't know. Something's not right. Marianne, she left me a message. And Jack, he's been acting so strange." Paul's brow furrowed, his ex-detective instincts clearly kicking in. "What kind of message?" Before I could answer, Jack's voice rang out across the cemetery. "Eva, where are you?" I froze, suddenly terrified of my own husband. Paul squeezed my hand reassuringly. "We'll figure this out," he promised. "But right now, you need to go back. We can't raise suspicions." I nodded, taking a deep breath. As I walked back towards Jack, Marianne's words echoed in my mind. "Unveil the truth, Eva." Whatever that truth was, I was determined to find it, no matter the cost. The days following Marianne's funeral blurred together, a haze of grief and unease. I found myself wandering through our house, touching the little gifts she'd given us over the years, a delicate china teacup, a hand-knitted throw, a painting of the ocean she'd done herself. Each item held a memory, a piece of the woman who'd become my second mother. "You're moping again." Jack's voice cut through my reverie. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed, a frown creasing his forehead. I sighed, setting down the teacup. "I'm grieving, Jack. Your mother meant a lot to me." "And what about me?" he snapped. "She was my mother. Why aren't you comforting me?" The accusation stung. "I've tried, Jack, but you won't let me in. You've been so distant," he scoffed, turning away. "Not everyone wears their heart on their sleeve, Eva." As he stormed off, I sank onto the couch, my mind drifting back to happier times. I remembered the day Marianne taught me to make her famous apple pie, flour dusting our cheeks as we laughed together in her sunny kitchen. She'd confided in me that day, telling me how grateful she was that I'd brought joy back into Jack's life. "He was so lost before you, Eva," she'd said, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "You saved him." Now, as I sat alone in our silent house, I wondered if I'd saved Jack at all, or if I'd merely been a bandage over a wound that had never truly healed. The shrill ring of the phone startled me from my thoughts. I answered, hoping to hear my father's reassuring voice. Instead, it was Robert. "Eva, dear, I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all," I said, surprised. Robert rarely called. "Is everything okay?" There was a pause, heavy with unspoken words. I found something of Marianne's. I think you should see it." My heart raced. "What is it?" "It's better if I show you in person. Can you come over? Alone?" I glanced towards the studio where Jack was working. "Of course, I'll be there in an hour." As I hung up, a chill ran down my spine. What had Robert found? And why did he want me to come alone? I scribbled a note for Jack, claiming I was going for a walk to clear my head. The lie tasted bitter on my tongue, but I pushed away the guilt. Something told me this was too important to ignore. Robert's house was eerily quiet when I arrived. He ushered me in, his face drawn and pale. "Thank you for coming, Eva. I didn't know who else to turn to." He led me to Marianne's study, a room I'd always loved for its warmth and character. Now it felt cold, abandoned. Robert crossed to the desk and pulled out a leather-bound journal. "I found this hidden in a false drawer," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I think Marianne was afraid of something or someone." With trembling hands, I opened the journal. Marianne's familiar handwriting filled the pages, but the words made my blood run cold. "Jack isn't who we think he is," one entry read. "I fear for Eva's safety. I have to tell her the truth, but how?" I looked up at Robert, my world tilting on its axis. "What does this mean?" Before he could answer, the front door slammed. Jack's voice echoed through the house. "Dad? Eva? What's going on?" Robert's face drained of color. He snatched the journal from my hands and shoved it into a drawer. "You can't tell him you've seen this," he hissed. "Promise me, Eva." Footsteps approached the study. I nodded, my heart pounding so hard I was sure Jack would hear it. As the door swung open, revealing Jack's suspicious face, one thought blazed through my mind. What terrible secret had Marianne taken to her grave, and how much danger was I in? The memory of Marianne's last day haunted me as I paced our living room, unable to shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. It had been a typical Sunday brunch, filled with laughter and the aroma of Marianne's famous blueberry pancakes. How could I have known it would be the last time I'd see her alive? "Eva, you're wearing a hole in the carpet," Jack said, his voice laced with irritation. He sat on the couch, sketching furiously, dark circles under his eyes. I stopped, studying him. When had the man I loved become a stranger? "I'm sorry, I just can't stop thinking about your mother. Her death was so sudden." Jack's pencil snapped. "People die, Eva. It happens." His callousness shocked me. "Jack, she was your mother." He stood abruptly, his sketchbook falling to the floor. As he bent to retrieve it, a folded paper fluttered out. I snatched it up before he could react. "Eva, don't," he started, but I had already unfolded it. My blood ran cold. It was a detailed drawing of Marianne, her face contorted in fear, hands clutching her throat. In the corner, scrawled in Jack's messy handwriting, "She knew too much." "What is this?" I whispered, my voice shaking. Jack's face darkened. "It's art, Eva. You wouldn't understand." "Art?" I felt sick. "This looks like you were imagining her death." He lunged for the paper, but I stepped back, clutching it to my chest. "Tell me the truth, Jack. What happened to Marianne?" His eyes, once so warm and loving, now glittered with something dangerous. "You're being hysterical. Give me the drawing." I shook my head, backing away. "I'm calling my dad." Before I could reach my phone, Jack grabbed my wrist, squeezing hard enough to make me gasp. "You're not calling anyone. This is family business." "Let go of me." I wrenched my arm free, my heart pounding. A knock at the door made us both freeze. "Eva? Jack? It's Robert. I need to talk to you." Jack's face paled. He snatched the drawing from my hand, crumpling it into his pocket. "Not a word," he hissed, before plastering on a smile and opening the door. Robert stood there, looking haggard. His eyes darted between us, sensing the tension. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all, Dad," Jack said smoothly. "What's up?" Robert hesitated. I found something in your mother's things, a letter. It's addressed to Eva." Jack's facade cracked for a moment. "What? Why would Mom write to Eva and not me?" "I don't know, son." Robert handed me a sealed envelope. "She left instructions for me to give this to you, Eva, in the event of her death." My hands trembled as I took the letter. Jack's eyes bored into me, his jaw clenched. "Well, open it," he snapped. With shaking fingers, I broke the seal and unfolded the paper. Marianne's elegant handwriting filled the page. As I read, my world tilted on its axis. "My dearest Eva, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I pray it was peaceful, but I fear it wasn't. There are things you need to know about Jack, about our family, things I was too cowardly to tell you in life. Jack isn't who you think he is. He's dangerous, Eva. Get out while you can. Go to your father. He'll know what to do. I'm so sorry I didn't protect you better. Please be safe. And remember, unveil the truth. All my love, Marianne." I looked up, my vision blurring with tears. Robert watched me anxiously, while Jack's face had transformed into a mask of fury. "What does it say?" he demanded, reaching for the letter. I clutched it to my chest, backing away. "Stay away from me, Jack." "Eva," Robert said softly, "what's going on?" But before I could answer, Jack lunged at me, his hands outstretched. I screamed, dodging his grasp and running for the door. As I fled into the night, Marianne's words echoed in my mind. Jack was dangerous, and I was no longer safe in my own home. My heart pounded as I raced through the darkened streets, Marianne's letter clutched tightly in my hand. The cool night air stung my tear-streaked face, but I didn't slow down. I couldn't. Jack's enraged face haunted me, pushing me forward until I found myself at Robert's doorstep. I hesitated, my fist hovering over the door. Could I trust him? The memory of his calm demeanor at Marianne's funeral sent a chill down my spine, but I had nowhere else to go. Before I could knock, the door swung open. Robert stood there, his face a mask of concern. "Eva? What happened?" I stumbled inside, collapsing onto his couch. "Marianne's letter," I gasped, holding it out to him with trembling hands. She said Jack is dangerous, that I need to get away." Robert's face paled as he read the letter. When he looked up, his eyes were filled with a mixture of fear and resignation. "I was afraid of this," he murmured. "You knew?" I felt a surge of anger. "Why didn't you say something?" He sank into a chair, suddenly looking every bit of his 65 years. "I suspected, but I didn't want to believe it. Jack, he's always had a darkness in him. Marianne tried to protect him, to hide it from the world." "Protect him from what?" I demanded. "Robert, what aren't you telling me?" He took a deep breath. "When Jack was a teenager, there was an incident. A girl in his class went missing. They never found her, but Marianne, she found evidence in Jack's room. Bloody clothes, the girl's necklace." I felt the blood drain from my face. "No," I whispered, "that's not possible." "Marianne covered it up," Robert continued, his voice hollow. "She thought she could save him, change him. When you came into his life, we thought maybe." A loud bang interrupted him. We both jumped as the front door flew open, revealing Jack, his eyes wild with rage. "You just couldn't leave it alone, could you?" he snarled, advancing towards me. I scrambled to my feet, putting the coffee table between us. "Jack, please, we can get you help." He laughed, a chilling sound that made my skin crawl. "Help? I don't need help, Eva. I need you to mind your own business." Robert stood, placing himself between Jack and me. "Son, calm down. Let's talk about this." "Talk?" Jack's voice dripped with contempt. "Like you and Mom talked about me behind my back all these years? Treating me like I was broken, like I needed to be fixed. We were trying to protect you," Robert pleaded. "Protect me?" Jack's hand disappeared into his jacket pocket. When it emerged, my blood ran cold. The glint of metal in the dim light could only be one thing: a gun. "Jack, no!" I cried, but it was too late. The gunshot was deafening in the small room. Robert crumpled to the floor, a red stain blossoming on his chest. I screamed, dropping to my knees beside him. "Robert! Oh, God, Robert!" Jack stood over us, the gun now trained on me. "You should have left it alone, Eva. We could have been happy." As I looked up at my husband, the man I thought I knew, I saw a stranger. A monster. and I knew in that moment that my life would never be the same. "What are you going to do?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Jack's lips curved into a cold smile. "We're going on a little trip, darling, just you and me." As he grabbed my arm, yanking me to my feet, I made a silent vow. I would survive this. I would unveil the truth no matter the cost. For Marianne, for Robert, and for myself. The door slammed behind us, leaving Robert bleeding on the floor. As Jack shoved me into his car, I prayed my father would somehow find me. It was my only hope now. The car sped through the night, streetlights blurring past as Jack drove with reckless abandon. My mind raced, desperately searching for a way out of this nightmare. Robert's blood-stained face haunted me. Was he still alive? And what about my father? Did he know I was in danger? "Where are we going, Jack?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He glanced at me, his eyes cold and unfamiliar. "Somewhere we can start over. Somewhere no one knows us." I swallowed hard, fighting back tears. "We can't just disappear. People will look for us." Jack's laugh was hollow. "Let them look. By the time they figure it out, we'll be long gone." As we drove, I surreptitiously felt for my phone, hoping to send a distress signal. My heart sank when I realized it was gone, probably left behind at Robert's house in the chaos. Suddenly, Jack's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face darkening. "Damn it," he muttered. "What is it?" I asked, trying to peer at the screen. He shoved the phone in his pocket. "Nothing. Change of plans." The car screeched as Jack made a sharp turn, heading away from the highway and onto a narrow, wooded road. Fear clawed at my throat as trees closed in around us, swallowing the car in darkness. "Jack, please," I begged. "This isn't you. We can get help, figure this out together." He slammed on the brakes, the car skidding to a stop. "This is me, Eva," he shouted, his face contorted with rage. "This has always been me. You just never wanted to see it." As he ranted, my eyes darted around, searching for anything I could use as a weapon. That's when I saw it. A familiar dirt path leading off into the woods. With a jolt, I realized where we were. "The cabin," I whispered. Jack's anger morphed into a chilling smile. "Smart girl, Mom's old writing retreat, isolated, off the grid, the perfect place for us to reconnect." My blood ran cold as memories flooded back. Marianne had brought me here once, showing me her sanctuary, but there had been something off about it, hidden rooms, strange locks on the doors. At the time, I'd thought nothing of it. Now, the realization hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just a cabin, it was a fortress. Jack roughly pulled me from the car, marching me down the overgrown path. As we approached the cabin, a sensor light flickered on, illuminating the weathered structure. "Home sweet home," Jack muttered, fumbling with a set of keys. I knew I had to act fast. This might be my only chance. As Jack struggled with the lock, I took a deep breath and made my decision. I slammed my elbow into his ribs with all my strength. He gasped, doubling over, and I took off running into the woods. Branches whipped at my face as I crashed through the underbrush, Jack's enraged shouts echoing behind me. I had no idea where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stop. Suddenly, the ground disappeared beneath my feet. I tumbled down a steep embankment, landing hard at the bottom. Pain shot through my ankle as I tried to stand. Jack's voice grew closer. "Eva, you can't hide from me." Panic threatened to overwhelm me, but I forced it down. I couldn't give up now. Gritting my teeth against the pain, I dragged myself into a dense thicket, praying the darkness would conceal me. As I huddled there, heart pounding, a new sound cut through the night, a distant siren. Hope surged through me. Had someone found Robert? Were they looking for me? Jack must have heard it too. His footsteps stopped, then quickly retreated back towards the cabin. I let out a shaky breath, tears of relief streaming down my face, but I knew this was far from over. I was injured, lost in the woods, with a dangerous man hunting me. And somewhere out there was the truth about Marianne's death, a truth that Jack was willing to kill to protect. As the sirens grew louder, I made a vow. I would survive this night. I would uncover the truth, and I would make sure Jack paid for everything he'd done. With renewed determination, I began to crawl towards the sound of salvation, leaving a trail of blood and broken twigs in my wake. I stumbled through my father's front door, my clothes torn and muddy, my ankle throbbing with each step. Paul's eyes widened in shock as he took in my disheveled appearance. "Eva! My God, what happened?" He rushed to support me, guiding me to the couch. As I collapsed onto the cushions, the events of the past few hours came pouring out in a torrent of words. Marianne's letter, Robert's confession, Jack's true nature, the cabin in the woods. I told him everything. Paul's face grew grimmer with each revelation. When I finished, he sat in stunned silence for a moment before his ex-detective instincts kicked in. "We need to call the police," he said, reaching for his phone. I grabbed his arm. "No, Jack has connections in the department. We can't trust them." Paul's brow furrowed. "Then what do you suggest?" I took a deep breath. "We need to find proof, something concrete that ties Jack to Marianne's death and the missing girl from his past." My father nodded slowly. "I might know someone who can help, an old colleague who works as a private investigator now. But Eva, this is dangerous. Jack's already proven he's willing to kill." "I know," I said, my voice shaking. "But I can't let him get away with this. For Marianne, for that poor girl, for all of us. We have to stop him." Paul squeezed my hand. "All right, let me make a call." As he stepped away to contact his friend, I limped to the window, scanning the street for any sign of Jack. My nerves were frayed, every shadow seeming to hold a threat. Paul returned, his face grim. "My contact can meet us in an hour. He thinks he might have a lead on where to find evidence against Jack." Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. My blood ran cold as I read the message. "I know where you are. You have something that belongs to me. Bring Marianne's letter to the old warehouse on Elm Street in 1 hour, or Daddy Dearest pays the price." Attached was a photo of my father's house, clearly taken from across the street. "Dad," I whispered, showing him the message. "He's here. He's watching us." Paul's face hardened. "We need to leave. Now." We slipped out the back door, my father supporting me as we made our way to his car. As we drove away, I saw a figure step out of the shadows, watching us go. "Jack, where are we going?" I asked, my heart racing. "To meet my contact," Paul replied, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "He might be our only chance to end this." As we sped through the night, my mind whirled. How had everything gone so wrong? How had I missed the signs of Jack's true nature for so long? We pulled up to an abandoned factory on the outskirts of town. A lone figure stood waiting, his face obscured by shadows. "Stay in the car," Paul ordered, reaching for something under his seat. He pulled out a gun, checking it quickly before tucking it into his waistband. "Dad, no," I protested. "It's too dangerous." He gave me a sad smile. "I'm your father, Eva. Protecting you is my job." As he stepped out of the car, a shot rang out. Paul stumbled, clutching his shoulder. I screamed, scrambling out of the car towards him. Another figure emerged from the darkness. Jack, his gun trained on us both. "I warned you, Eva," he said, his voice cold. "Now it's time to face the consequences." I stood frozen, caught between my injured father and my murderous husband. In that moment, I realized the true meaning of Marianne's words. The truth I needed to unveil wasn't just about Jack's crimes. It was about my own strength, my ability to fight back against the darkness that threatened to consume us all. As Jack advanced, his finger tightening on the trigger, I knew I had to make a choice. Run and save myself, or stand and fight for the truth, no matter the cost. With my heart pounding in my ears, I made my decision. Time seemed to slow as Jack advanced, his gun trained on my father. In that moment, I made my choice. I wouldn't run. I wouldn't cower. I would fight. "Jack, stop," I shouted, stepping between him and my father. "This ends now." His eyes, once warm and loving, now cold as ice, locked onto mine. "You're right, Eva. It does end now." I heard my father groan behind me, struggling to his feet. "Eva, get out of here." But I stood my ground. "Why Jack? Why Marianne? Why any of this?" A twisted smile played on his lips. "She was going to ruin everything, just like you're trying to do now. By telling the truth?" I challenged, my voice stronger than I felt. "The truth," he spat. "The truth is, I'm smarter than all of you. I've always been smarter. Marianne thought she could control me, manipulate me with her secrets and her lies, but I saw through it all." As he ranted, I noticed movement in the shadows behind him. The private investigator? I had to keep Jack talking. "What about the girl from your past?" I pressed. "The one who went missing." Jack's face contorted with rage. "She was nothing. A stupid, nosy bitch who couldn't mind her own business, just like you, Eva, just like Marianne." So you killed them both," I said, my heart pounding. "Your own mother, Jack?" He laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the abandoned factory. and that it was easy. A little poison in her tea, and all her meddling was over. And now... A gunshot rang out, cutting off Jack's words. He stumbled, a look of shock crossing his face as he crumpled to the ground. Behind him stood Robert, my father-in-law, his hands shaking as he lowered the gun. "I'm sorry," Robert whispered, tears streaming down his face. "I'm so sorry. I should have stopped him years ago." As Jack lay gasping on the ground, the private investigator emerged from the shadows, quickly disarming him and calling for backup. I rushed to my father's side, helping him sit up. "Dad, are you okay?" He nodded grimly, pressing a hand to his wounded shoulder. "I'll live. Eva, I'm so proud of you." Sirens wailed in the distance as I turned back to Robert. "You knew," I said, my voice trembling. "You knew what he was capable of." Robert's shoulders sagged with the weight of his guilt. "I suspected, but I couldn't. I didn't want to believe it. Marianne and we thought we could protect him, change him. We were wrong." As the police cars pulled up, their lights painting the scene in harsh reds and blues, I felt a strange mix of relief and devastation wash over me. It was over, but at what cost? Jack, now handcuffed and being led to a police car, locked eyes with me one last time. "This isn't over, Eva," he snarled. "You'll never be free of me." I watched as they drove away, my whole body shaking with adrenaline and fear. Robert approached me hesitantly, his face etched with sorrow. "Eva, I know I have no right to ask, but can you ever forgive me?" I looked at this broken man, this father who had tried so desperately to save his son from himself. In his eyes, I saw the same pain and regret that I felt in my own heart. "I don't know," I answered honestly, "but I think Marianne would want us to try." As the paramedics tended to my father and the investigators combed the scene, I stood in the middle of it all, feeling both stronger and more vulnerable than I ever had before. The truth had been unveiled, but the cost had been devastating. In that moment, I realized that this wasn't the end of my journey. It was just the beginning. There were still questions to be answered, wounds to be healed, and a life to rebuild from the ashes of everything I thought I knew. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, I took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next. The truth had set me free, but now I had to learn how to live with that freedom. The courthouse buzzed with tension as I took the stand, my eyes locking with Jack's across the room. His face, once so familiar, now seemed like a mask hiding a stranger. As I recounted the events that led to this moment, I felt a strange mix of sorrow and strength. "Mrs. Lawson," the prosecutor began, "can you tell us about the night your mother-in-law, Marianne, died?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of Marianne's final message. Unveil the truth, she had written, and that's exactly what I intended to do. "I found her in her study," I said, my voice steady. "At first I thought she was sleeping, but then I saw the empty teacup and I knew something was wrong." As I spoke, I watched Jack's face, his jaw clenched, a flicker of something, fear, anger, passing through his eyes. "Did you suspect foul play?" the prosecutor pressed. I nodded. "Not at first, but then I found a letter Marianne had left for me. She warned me about Jack, told me he was dangerous." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Jack's attorney objected, but the judge overruled him. "And what did you do with this information, Mrs. Lawson?" I recounted the harrowing events that followed, my escape to my father's house, the confrontation at the abandoned factory, Robert's shocking intervention. With each revelation, I felt the truth settling over the courtroom like a heavy blanket. When it was Jack's turn to testify, I steeled myself, but nothing could have prepared me for what came next. "I did it," Jack said, his voice cold and emotionless. "I killed my mother. I killed that girl years ago, and I would have killed Eva too, if I'd had the chance." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. I felt my father's hand on my shoulder, steadying me. "Why?" the prosecutor asked, clearly thrown by Jack's sudden confession. Jack's eyes met mine, a chilling smile playing on his lips. "Because I could, because they all thought they were better than me, smarter than me, but I showed them, didn't I?" As Jack's confession unfolded, detailing years of manipulation and violence, I felt a strange sense of relief washing over me. The truth was finally out, in all its ugly glory. When the verdict was read, guilty on all counts, I expected to feel triumphant. Instead, I felt hollow, drained. As they led Jack away, he called out to me one last time, "You think this is over, Eva? It's never over." Outside the courthouse, I found Robert waiting, looking older and more broken than ever. "Eva," he began, his voice cracking, "I can't begin to tell you how sorry I am, for everything." I looked at this man who had lost everything in his misguided attempt to protect his son. "I know, Robert. I know." "What will you do now?" he asked. I thought about Marianne, about her final message to me. "I'm going to live," I said simply. "I'm going to dance again, to create, and I'm going to make sure Marianne's story, and the story of that poor girl, is never forgotten." Robert nodded, tears in his eyes. "She would have been proud of you, Eva, so proud." As I walked away from the courthouse, my father by my side, I felt the weight of the past few months lifting. The truth had been unveiled, just as Marianne had wanted. It hadn't been easy, and the cost had been high, but I had survived. "You okay, sweetheart?" my father asked, concern etched on his face. I smiled, a real smile for the first time in what felt like forever. "I will be, Dad. I will be." The sun was setting as we drove home, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. As I watched the colors blend and change, I thought about the future stretching out before me. It was uncertain, yes, but it was mine. And for the first time in a long time, I felt ready to face it. Marianne's final gift to me hadn't just been the truth about Jack. It had been the strength to reclaim my life, to stand up for what was right, no matter the cost. As I closed my eyes, I could almost hear her voice whispering on the wind. "Dance, Eva, live, love, and never stop seeking the truth." And in that moment, I knew that's exactly what I would do.
Amidst grappling with the profound loss of my mother, my world was further shaken by William's unexpected announcement. He approached me with an unsettling smile, declaring his intent to leave our shared home to his parents if I disagreed with proceeding with a divorce. His words struck me like a lightning bolt, revealing a stark truth. My feelings for him had completely evaporated, replaced by growing resentment towards William and his family. With cold indifference, I retorted, hinting at the regret he might face, only to be dismissed by his carefree laughter. He confidently handed me the divorce papers, his grin never fading. It was in that moment that I vowed to stand my ground, refusing to be belittled or underestimated by him any longer. With determined spirit, I accepted the papers and made my exit, heading straight to my uncle's home for refuge the following day. With my uncle's support, I confronted my now former in-laws at their grand estate. My sudden absence had sparked confusion, with accusations of neglecting my supposed duties as a housekeeper, a role they mistakenly believed still bound me. I corrected them with finality. I was no longer William's wife. Having finalized our divorce, William was visibly shocked, silenced by the reality of our severed ties. My uncle, a seasoned lawyer, interjected to address legal matters, underlining the seriousness of the situation. My story begins as Sarah Brown, a 33-year-old woman who had climbed the corporate ladder to a managerial position. Thanks to the unwavering determination instilled in me by my mother, raised by a single mother who built a business empire from the ground up, I was taught the value of hard work and the importance of financial independence. My mother's legacy was not just her business, but her belief in living a fulfilling life, a mantra she repeated as a tribute to both herself and my late father. Life had its demands, but my family's support, especially from my uncle, eased the burdens. Our household ethos was self-reliance, pushing me to pursue my goals diligently. This drive led me to meet William at work, whose initial charm and zeal won me over, leading to marriage. However, our relationship, devoid of children, had settled into a routine existence. One particularly late work night highlighted the growing rift between us. Returning home exhausted, I was met not with understanding or comfort, but with William's impatient demand for dinner. This incident, among others, painted a clear picture of our deteriorating relationship, culminating in the pivotal moment of our divorce. Through these trials, my resolve has only strengthened. Guided by the lessons of my mother and supported by my family, The journey from grief to asserting my independence has been challenging but essential in rediscovering my worth and the direction of my life post-William. After a long day at work, I arrived home to find William sprawled on the couch, engrossed in his phone, barely acknowledging my presence. Despite my earlier heads-up about coming home late and suggesting he dine without me, his response was as if hearing it for the first time. "Oh, did you say that?" he remarked casually, ignoring my efforts to remind him. His laid-back attitude irked me, especially when he lazily insisted I hurry up and prepare dinner for him. William's attitude towards work and home responsibilities has always been lackluster. Unlike me, who has climbed the corporate ladder to secure a managerial position, William seems content with his minimal-effort job, showing little ambition to advance. This disparity in our professional lives has often led me to wish he'd contribute more at home, yet my requests fall on deaf ears as chores remain ignored, and his personal messes clutter our living spaces. The early days of our marriage painted a different picture, with William showing more care and actively participating in household duties. However, as time passed, his enthusiasm waned, revealing a stark contrast to the man I married. Tensions escalated when he insensitively hinted at our childlessness, attributing the blame solely to me, despite both of us facing challenges in this regard. His cruel words stemmed from a place of insecurity and jealousy over my career success, projecting his frustrations on me. Our argument that evening left a bitter taste, with William retreating to bed in a huff, skipping dinner. The silence of the night was filled with my reflections on our strained relationship as I heated up some food alone the next day, my rare day off. I woke up to find William absent, likely visiting his parents, a thought that allowed me some peace. I chose to spend my day visiting my mother in the hospital, who had been overexerting herself to the point of collapse. Despite her condition, she remained devoted, even from her hospital bed. Our conversation provided a welcome distraction from my own troubles, focusing on lighter subjects like the picturesque view outside her room. However, the peace was short-lived as a message from my mother-in-law appeared, her tone accusatory. When I returned her call, she criticized me for neglecting William and prioritizing my mother over him. Her words were cutting, colored by the expectation that as a wife, my career and personal achievements should not overshadow my duties to William. This interaction starkly reminded me of the ongoing challenges I faced, not just in my marriage, but within the dynamics of our extended family. The expectations placed on me, coupled with the disregard for my own well-being and aspirations, pointed to underlying issues that needed addressing. My journey, marked by professional success and personal struggles, continues to be a delicate balance of meeting expectations and seeking my own happiness amidst the complexities of relationships and societal norms. As I ended the call with my mother-in-law, her harsh words about our infertility and her desire for me to prioritize William above all else lingered in my mind. She never seemed to grasp the importance of allowing her adult son to make his own decisions. It was disheartening to witness William consistently seeking refuge behind his parents, a behavior that saddened me deeply. Brushing aside my frustration, I noticed my uncle approaching. He had come to visit my mother as well, but our meeting was interrupted by the arrival of a man standing behind him. My uncle mentioned he might play a significant role in my future career and introduced us. "This is Ryan Richard," he said, and we exchanged business cards. After Ryan entered the hospital on my uncle's instruction, I confided in my uncle about the phone call with my mother-in-law, expressing my dismay over William's lack of responsibility and his mother's unjustified accusations. My uncle's concern deepened as I recounted the ordeal, advising me not to burden my mother with these worries. Our conversation was abruptly cut short by a sudden emergency. By the time I returned to the hospital, my mother had unexpectedly passed away. The shock left me numb, struggling to grasp the reality of her absence. Ever supportive, my uncle stepped in to handle the funeral arrangements. Amidst our mourning, I overheard a conversation that brought me back to reality. William and his parents, seemingly oblivious to the somberness of the occasion, were discussing the inheritance left by my mother, who had been a successful CEO. Their insensitive remarks about moving on from their modest living conditions, assuming the inheritance would naturally come to them, deeply upset me. Furious at their audacity, I demanded they leave. My uncle promptly intervened, ensuring they were escorted out despite their protests and insults. He reassured me of his support, offering to help sever ties with William and his family if I chose to. In the aftermath, returning to the home I shared with William was unthinkable. Instead, I sought refuge in the mansion inherited from my mother. This house, lovingly designed by her, was filled with cherished memories. It was here we planted flowers together, played hide-and-seek, and shared precious moments. Despite her busy schedule, the mansion now mine stood as a testament to her love and our life together. It offered me solace as I contemplated my next steps, surrounded by the legacy of a woman who taught me the value of independence and strength. When my mother was still with us, she often spoke about the importance of independence and making my own choices. Now facing a turbulent chapter in my life, her words echoed in my mind, urging me to stand firm. During these reflections, the doorbell chimed, interrupting my thoughts. Expecting it might be my uncle, who had a habit of dropping by unexpectedly ever since I was young. I opened the door without hesitation. To my astonishment, William, accompanied by his parents, greeted me with an air of entitlement. Marveling at the grandeur of the mansion, they barged in without invitation, carrying moving boxes as if claiming the place as their own. William boldly declared the mansion now belonged to his parents, leaving me speechless. My heart sank at the assertion that my mother's legacy, her house, was supposedly transferred to William's parents. The very idea seemed ludicrous and unfounded. William claimed a legal maneuver had been made to change the ownership, a revelation that struck me as both outrageous and deeply hurtful. Faced with their audacity, my sorrow transformed into seething anger. William, mistaking my silence for compliance, presented me with divorce papers, smugly suggesting that if I opposed their claim, our marriage would end. The realization hit me hard. I no longer harbored any affection for him. Instead, a fierce determination took root, promising myself that William would regret underestimating me. With the divorce papers in hand, I left for my uncle's house, my resolve never stronger. My uncle, a lawyer by profession, was appalled at the illegalities and moral bankruptcy of their actions. He assured me of his full support, not just in protecting my mother's estate, but also in standing by my side through the forthcoming legal battle. The loss of my mother had initially plunged me into despair, but the egregious actions of William and his parents had ignited a fire within me. I refused to let such injustice go unchallenged. Together with my uncle, we confronted William and his family at the mansion. William was visibly shaken as I declared our divorce, his confusion evident. The situation escalated as my in-laws attempted to intervene, only to be met with the firm resolve of my uncle. He clarified the legal stance, protecting my rights and my mother's legacy from their unscrupulous grasp. This confrontation marked a turning point, not just in reclaiming what was rightfully mine, but also in severing ties with a family that had shown no respect for me or my mother's memory. It was a poignant reminder of my mother's teachings, to live a life of dignity, self-respect, and independence. With my uncle's unwavering support, I embarked on a journey to ensure justice was served, determined to honor my mother's legacy, and forge a path forward on my own terms. As I stood in the heart of the mansion that belonged to my mother, I asserted my rightful ownership with unwavering conviction. The very idea that William and his parents could alter the property's ownership without my consent was not only audacious but blatantly illegal. William attempted to justify their actions by mentioning a legal clerk who supposedly managed the paperwork, a claim that reeked of forgery. Facing William, who looked at me with a mixture of defiance and realization, I made it clear that any attempts to undermine my rights would not be tolerated. His feeble attempt to accuse me of acting independently fell flat, especially since his actions were the ones teetering on illegality. His silence following my rebuttal was telling. It was evident he lacked the courage to confront the truth of his own inadequacies. William, in a desperate bid to hurt me, brought up my fertility challenges. Yet the irony was palpable. While I faced obstacles, there remained hope for me through medical treatments, a hope that William, due to his own circumstances, did not share. This fact highlighted the futility of his attempt to belittle me, especially when his own situation was considerably more definitive in its limitations. The confrontation reached its peak when I reminded William of the significance of the memories I held with my mother in this house. Overwhelmed by the weight of his actions and words, William could only lower his head in surrender. My uncle, meanwhile, had managed to silence William's parents, making it clear that their presence was no longer welcome and that they should brace themselves for the consequences of their audacity. Their attempt to infringe upon a space filled with cherished memories, only to face our united front, was a mistake they would come to regret deeply. It was during this tumultuous time that I learned of my mother's foresight. She had sensed the brewing storm in my life and had enlisted my uncle's support to protect me, knowing well that I would hesitate to burden her with my woes. Further investigations unveiled William and his family's premature celebrations over claiming my inheritance upon my mother's passing. However, their schemes crumbled with the revelation of my mother's will, meticulously prepared and entrusted to Ryan, a trusted friend introduced by my uncle. The will unequivocally stated that everything she owned was left to me, granting me full autonomy over the mansion and her estate. William's demeanor changed drastically as the reality of his situation dawned on him. In a last-ditch effort, he pleaded for my mercy, revealing the extent of his recklessness. His confession laid bare the truth of his financial ruin, brought on by extravagant nights out and irresponsible spending, which led him to sell both his home and his parents' house to cover his debts. His plea fell on deaf ears. The revelation of his actions, compounded by the betrayal of attempting to usurp my inheritance, solidified my resolve. William's problems were of his own making, a bitter harvest of the seeds he had sown. As I faced the aftermath of his deceit, it became clear that the path forward was one I would walk without him, safeguarded by the love and foresight of my mother, and supported by the unwavering loyalty of my uncle. Once married to William, I found myself at a crossroads, no longer his partner, but a woman forced to confront betrayal. William faced a stark choice: deal with the legal repercussions of his actions or attempt the impossible task of repurchasing the mansion for $5 million, a sum far beyond his reach after liquidating assets to barely cover his debts. As I regained control of the mansion, I discovered the theft of personal keepsakes, an act William's parents tried to dismiss by blaming it on their desire to sell unwanted items. Their audacity provided even more fodder for legal action against them. In the fallout, William and his family found themselves drowning in financial ruin, exacerbated by my decision to remove William from the company now under my leadership. The drama escalated when William's father, blinded by entitlement, demanded retraction and compensation at the company, only to be escorted away by the police. My uncle, and I could only look on with wry amusement at the spectacle of their downfall, The revelation that William's cousin, a legal clerk, had orchestrated the fraudulent transfer of the mansion's ownership further tangled the web of deceit. His actions, driven by familial loyalty and personal vendetta, ultimately led to his professional and social ostracization. The ripple effect of his malice left William's family isolated and embroiled in internal conflict, a situation from which I chose to detach myself entirely. With my uncle's unwavering support, I made the difficult decision to sell the mansion. Though it was a place of cherished memories with my mother, the events had sullied its significance. Its vastness felt overwhelming for a single occupant. The sale was swift, with the mansion finding a new owner seeking tranquility in their twilight years. This decision marked the end of a chapter, allowing me to bid farewell to the past and start anew, focusing on my future and career. In the midst of these changes, Ryan, who had been instrumental in uncovering the truth and defending my interests, reached out. Grateful for his support and curious about what he had to say, I agreed to meet him over coffee. Ryan expressed his desire to support me, not just as a professional ally, but as someone who genuinely cared for my well-being. His sincere approach took me by surprise, hinting at the possibility of new beginnings and unexpected allies. In the aftermath of turmoil after the tumult with William settled, Ryan stepped forward with an unexpected confession of his feelings for me. "I like you, Sarah," he admitted, a hint of nervousness in his voice. He was aware of the recent chaos in my life and didn't expect an immediate response, instead asking me to consider his feelings once everything calmed down. Handing me his personal contact details, he looked earnest, his face flushed with sincerity. Until that moment, I hadn't thought of him romantically, but seeing his genuine demeanor, I found myself contemplating the possibility of starting anew. Not long after, I heard that my former in-laws attempted a break-in at the mansion, mistakenly believing I was still the owner. Their efforts were thwarted by the new owner's security measures, leading to their arrest. Given their prior misdemeanors, this incident underscored their relentless but futile attempts to disrupt my peace. Amidst this, William reached out unrepentantly, asking for help with his financial woes. Having somehow avoided the legal consequences that befell his parents, his plea was met with my firm refusal. Once married, yes, but his continued recklessness only affirmed my decision to move on. I expressed my disappointment in myself for not seeing his true nature sooner and firmly ended the conversation, this time making sure to block his number. With that chapter firmly closed, I turned a new leaf with Ryan. His proposal and my acceptance marked the beginning of a sincere and honest relationship. Aware of my fertility challenges and past, Ryan's unwavering support and understanding assured me of our potential to build a fulfilling life together. Redefining the essence of family beyond biological ties, my uncle, who had always been a steadfast supporter, shared in our happiness. His support was rooted in a promise made to my late father, his best friend, to always look out for me and my mother. This revelation deepened my appreciation for his presence in my life, seeing him not just as an uncle, but as a father figure. Embracing this new chapter, Ryan and I decided to expand our family through adoption, a decision fully supported by my uncle. The joy of welcoming a child into our lives brought a new sense of purpose and fulfillment, reinforcing my commitment to pass on the values taught by my mother and exemplified by Ryan and my uncle. Our life together, enriched by love and shared values, prepared us for any challenges the future might hold. With a firm belief in the strength of our family, I vowed to teach our child the importance of resilience, the value of genuine connections, and the beauty of choosing kindness and understanding above all. I'm just telling you, it's time for you to leave. Can't you see yourself in the mirror and feel embarrassed? Am I that embarrassing to you? Yes, you are. This whole situation is embarrassing. Even with my close friends and boss here, the thought of them finding out you're joining the family is frustrating. My name is Olivia. I was born with a physical condition and use a wheelchair instead of my legs. I grew up in a family of 5, with my parents who have passed away and my lovely brother John. My parents raised me with as much love and care as any other child. They showered me with affection, and while my brother John, though a bit overprotective, has always been supportive. That's how I've lived a happy life. Now, as Madam CEO, I receive the schedule for this month. I'm grateful and happy to stay busy, but sometimes I wish for a break. Despite my appearance, I run a company. Even though my body is different, I do my best in everything I can. That's why I studied hard and wanted to succeed on my own terms. My hard work paid off, and I was able to start my own business. As I discuss the schedule with my secretary, I get a call. Hello, John, what's up? Hey, sorry to bother you when you're busy. Actually, I'm getting married and I wanted to tell you first, Olivia. Really? Congratulations. What's the person like? We met through work. They're kind, good at cooking and housework. Just wonderful. That's great. As your sister, I'm relieved you found someone. Stop talking like our mom, will you? Well, I was just worried if you could really find someone. Wonderful. How well? The wedding is set for 5 months from now. That's quite sudden, isn't it, with how things are nowadays? We just thought it was the right time. I'm sorry, it's all so rushed. But can you make it, Olivia? Of course I'll be there. It's your wedding after all. I'll make it work no matter what. But you better come to my wedding too. Thanks. Wait, your wedding, Olivia? I haven't heard anything about that. Haha, don't work too hard. Okay. See you. As I quickly manage my work schedule for the wedding, my secretary watches me with a warm smile. My brother and I are busy in different industries, and I haven't met his fiancée yet. The day of the wedding arrives, and as I'm about to enter the venue, someone calls out to me. Hey, you there, wait a moment. Oh, are you talking to me? Are you by any chance? What? It's obvious, isn't it? I'm the bride, the star of today's show. Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Olivia, John's sister. I was glad to meet Nicole, the bride, but her attitude seemed a bit strange. Strange. While I wondered about it, she suddenly said, Hey, what's with this woman? I can't believe this, Nicole. What's going on? Don't touch me, please. I wasn't told that John had a sister like you. I knew he had a sister, but not like this. It seemed like Nicole didn't like how I looked. That's why she acted so cold when we greeted each other. What's the matter with you? She said, I don't care if John's sister or whatever. That's a different matter. How will you compensate if you infect me with something? Please, calm down. There's nothing about me that you can catch. Keep quiet. Your droplets are spreading. I can't believe this. People like you should be mentioned beforehand. Finding this out on the wedding day is the worst. Worst? What about me is the worst? You should figure it out yourself. Anyway, John and I are getting married, so I'll have to deal with you whether I like it or not. If people find out someone like you is my sister-in-law, I'll be humiliated in front of everyone. Think a little. Think? What do you mean? I'm saying you should be considerate enough to leave. Can't you look at yourself in the mirror and feel ashamed? Am I an embarrassment to you? Yes, all of it. This whole situation is embarrassing. Even with my close friends and boss here, it's embarrassing that they'll know you're part of the family. Do you always think like this? Huh, that's none of your business. Since I caught John the CEO, don't you dare get in my way. I was sure Nicole was tricking my brother. She was clearly pretending to be nice. My brother, who is always kind and never gets angry, had been fooled by a strange woman. I didn't want to make things worse on his special day, so I tried to forget about it. Thinking about how important this day was for my brother, I decided to leave quietly. Then I'll be leaving now. I'll just leave a gift here. Huh, I don't need money from someone like you. You don't even look like you can hold a decent job. You're just leeching off John, aren't you? I bet your gift is something small like $7, right? Is that so? Then I'll take this $70,000 gift back with me. It's quite heavy, though. $70,000. Wait, if you had that much money, you should have said so earlier. I'll take it. Sorry, I've already put it away. It's too late now. I'll be leaving then. No, you leave that gift here. And why do you even have that much money? Oh, I see. That's money you took from John, isn't it? No, actually, I run a company that makes mobility equipment with a global reputation. Even though I look different, my company makes $700 million a year, so a gift like this is no big deal. All the more reason to leave that $770,000 here. I'll use it for John and my happiness. Honestly, I don't approve of your marriage to my brother. I can't accept someone like you who is just after his money. Stop raising your voice. It's your fault for being deceived. What's all this about? My brother John appeared, and Nicole looked shocked. This is. Well, what are you talking about, brother? No, it's not like that. I'm not after the money. I just wanted to support and be there for you, John. Hey, Nicole, what did you say to my precious sister, Olivia? What did you mean by what you said? John, why are you so angry? It doesn't matter to me if you're after my money or whatever. You can do as you like. It's my responsibility, and even if we break up someday, I won't be angry. But what I absolutely won't forgive is you disrespecting my dear Olivia. I was really surprised to see my usually gentle and calm brother raise his voice, but I also felt truly happy to hear him standing up for me. Meanwhile, Nicole, who was scolded by my brother, said, well then, she can come to the wedding. Okay, so first, John, let's calm down, all right. What do you mean she can come? We don't need your permission, do you? You really think I'd go through with a wedding with someone who's been so cruel to Olivia, the most important person in my world? There's no way that's happening. Why not? I just said your sister can come. That doesn't matter anymore. I can't and won't marry a woman who insults my family. We're breaking off the wedding. Breaking off the wedding? Why both? Olivia and I lost our parents when we still needed them. Olivia cried because she was lonely, but she still tried to cheer me up when I was sad. Even though she wanted to cry, she held it back and gave me the brightest smile. She was just a little kid in elementary school, and I was already in high school, a grown man. She held back her tears and told me to smile, and that gave me strength, brother. You remembered that? Of course I do. How could I forget you holding back so many tears, but still managed to smile? I still remember that smile of yours to this day. That's why even when work gets tough, I think of your smile, and it keeps me going. You tried to do house chores you only learned in home economics, but before I knew it, you were just making meals. You were preparing lunches, too. Olivia and I supported each other through life like that. I won't forgive anyone who insults such an important family member. Apologize to Olivia. Supporting each other, really? That's so exaggerated. Take back every single thing you said to Olivia. Look her in the eyes and apologize properly. Don't say anything else. My brother kept insisting that Nicole apologize to me for the disrespect she showed. We siblings have had struggles that only we can understand, and maybe that's why her words felt like an insult. As I stood there unable to do anything but watch, my brother, someone approached us. "Sorry you interrupt, just popping in here. Hey, do you even understand what kind of company you're working for?" "What? Why is the CEO here?" "You see, John has helped me a lot in business, and we even go out for meals together when we have time in our private lives. Isn't our company a distributor of mobility equipment? Yet your attitude and behavior are completely unacceptable from any angle." I looked at him surprised. "Wait, Scott, why are you here?" "I'm sorry you had to see such an unpleasant scene, Jan," said Scott. "But do you know, Olivia, I had no idea either. I'm also shocked to learn that John's dear sister is Olivia. I've been in a relationship with Olivia, and I want to marry her. So I'm asking for now my brother-in-law's permission." Scott explained his words a bit awkwardly. "Really, Scott? Bringing this up right now and suddenly talking about being brothers-in-law?" John said, shaking his head. "This is typical, Scott." "John Olivia is getting married to Scott," Anna interjected, trying to lighten the mood. "But I trust you, Scott. I know you'll take good care of Olivia. Why is everyone suddenly so happy?" John wondered aloud. "John, I promise to devote my life to making Olivia happy. I won't let you down. Please let me marry Olivia," Scott pleaded earnestly. "And you're saying this here, right now, John," said Scott, still processing. My boyfriend, Scott, who is also the CEO of Nickel Company, had just revealed his relationship with me to my brother John. They had both been friends in business and in life, but neither knew how we were all connected until now. Olivia, witnessing all this, finally spoke up. "Wait a minute, what? So this woman is the girlfriend of our company's CEO, and John, the savvy entrepreneur, is her brother. That's incredible," Nickel exclaimed. "But even if it's luck, Olivia worked hard to get here. She faced everything head-on and used her brains to succeed. Don't belittle her achievements by calling it luck. And by the way, she just became my fiancée a moment ago, so you understand what it means to insult the woman I'm marrying, right?" Scott replied defiantly. "So what if I did? I don't care if she's your girlfriend, friend, or fiancée or whatever. What's a CEO going to do? It's just personal stuff, right?" Nickel retorted. "Well, yes," Scott replied calmly, "but there are clients here, and the company's reputation is at stake. Your remarks, Nickel, are a serious issue in my company. Such behavior would be grounds for dismissal. You can't just fire me." "That would be a problem," Nickel protested. "I'm sorry, please forgive me. I can't stand the idea of someone like you becoming my sister-in-law," Nickel pleaded. "If you can't understand why you need to apologize, then there's no point in talking any further," Scott said firmly. "Wait, please. Breaking off the engagement and getting fired are big problems for me. How am I supposed to live if that happens?" Nickel begged, her tone desperate. "Why don't you look for another company?" Scott suggested calmly. "I'm done with you, Nickel," Scott said firmly. "But you still want me to get you a job at my company?" Nickel's eyes widened with desperation. "John, please, can you help me get a job? I'm your sister-in-law. Isn't there something you can do?" she pleaded. John shook his head slowly. "Nickel, you really don't get it, do you? After all this mess, there's no way you're getting hired at my company. It's not about family ties. It's about trust and respect." "But I'm family. Isn't it embarrassing to leave me unemployed?" Nickel's voice cracked as she tried to defend herself. "Embarrassing? No, it's not embarrassing," John said, his tone softening slightly. But if you're just calling this a mistake, it means you actually believe what you said. You haven't shown any real intention to apologize. It doesn't look like you mean it. Nicole's face flushed with panic as she realized the gravity of her situation. I didn't mean to offend anyone. I just said the wrong thing. If it was a mistake, Nicole, it was a big one, Scott said, his expression serious. I faced many people's judgments, but you're the first to speak so openly and harshly to me. It was a shock, but now I see that some people really think like you do. Does that mean you'll forgive me? Nicole asked, her eyes wide with hope. No, I can't forgive you, Scott replied, shaking his head. Who wouldn't be upset after hearing what you said? Imagine if someone spoke to you like that. Would you be happy? If it were me, I'd probably respond even more harshly. Well, it's going to be tough for you from now on. But good luck, Scott said, turning away from her. Marrying someone who can say such hurtful things is impossible. Our parents in heaven would be disappointed if I married someone like that. Olivia nodded in agreement. That's true. Mom was so kind, and Dad was very compassionate. I see now that my idea of a perfect couple was based on them. I want to have a relationship like that with Scott. Scott smiled at Olivia, his eyes softening. We can build that kind of relationship together. Olivia and John stepped forward, his expression stern. Scott, could you let go of Olivia's hand for a moment? It seems you've made your decision, brother. And one more thing, Nicole. You are responsible for all the wedding expenses. Nicole's face fell. Ouch, that's going to be a big hit on my wallet, she muttered, her voice filled with despair. Well, Nicole, Scott continued, I think it's best to call off the wedding. I've already told all my friends and posted about the dress, the food, and the venue on social media. Nicole's eyes widened with realization. No, I can't have the wedding called off. I've already told everyone. I shared everything online. How am I supposed to explain this? Maybe you should delete those posts, Scott suggested calmly. Most people who see them don't even know you. Is it really worth boasting to strangers about something that's not going to happen? Nicole looked around frantically, trying to find a way out of her predicament. Wait, please, this is impossible. You have to reconsider. Think about it, please, she begged. Scott sighed, looking at Nicole with a mix of pity and resolve. Nicole, you need to think this over. What you did was hurtful and disrespectful. It's going to be hard for you, but you have to face the consequences of your actions. As Scott turned to leave, Nicole's voice grew more desperate. Please, Scott, don't leave me like this. I'll do anything to make it right, she cried. Scott paused for a moment, then continued walking away, leaving Nicole to reflect on her actions. The reality of her situation was finally sinking in, and she realized that she had to take responsibility for the chaos she had caused. Meanwhile, Olivia and John watched the scene unfold with a sense of relief and closure. They knew that their family dynamics would be different from now on, but they also understood that this change was necessary for everyone involved. As they left, Olivia took Scott's hand, feeling a sense of hope for their future together despite the turmoil. She knew that they had made the right decision and that they could face whatever challenges lay ahead with confidence and strength. Back at home, Olivia and Scott sat down together, reflecting on the events of the day. I'm so proud of you, Scott, Olivia said softly. You stood up for what's right even when it was difficult. Scott smiled, holding Olivia close. I couldn't have done it without you, Olivia. You've been my rock through all of this, and I'm so grateful for your support. As they looked out the window, the sun set on a day that marked a new beginning for them both. They knew that the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but they were ready to face it together with love and determination. And so they moved forward, leaving the past behind and embracing the future with open hearts and unwavering faith in each other. I feel like I hear something, but let's not worry about it and move on. Wait, where are you going, brother? We're off to host an engagement party for Scott and Olivia. Well then, my princess, shall we go? Wait, what, Brother Scott? This is suddenly so embarrassing. Thanks to my brother's kind planning, what was supposed to be a simple wedding turned into a surprise engagement party for Scott and me. Many of our colleagues and mutual friends were invited. When Scott and I arrived and started greeting everyone, my brother suddenly began crying. Some people found it amusing and laughed, while others, maybe feeling touched, also shed some tears. Because of my brother's kind nature, Scott and I could announce our engagement in a warm and friendly setting. It felt good to have the support and love of our friends and family around us. Everyone seemed genuinely happy for us, and it made the moment even more special. Meanwhile, Nickel was kicked out of the venue, just as my brother had said she would be. Nickel had to pay for the entire cost of the ceremony and went into debt to cover it. She had hoped to show off her new status as the CEO's wife and enjoy some fame and respect. However, things didn't go as she planned. She was fired from her job, and instead of living the life of a CEO's wife, she's now being chased by debt collectors. Nickel had planned to live with my brother, so her apartment lease had already been canceled. Now she's left without a place to live and is dealing with the reality of her situation. Some people in the industry said they saw her in the park looking lost and distressed, but it's unclear if it was really her. The glamorous life she hoped for has crumbled, and she's facing the harsh truth of her decisions. As for me, Olivia, I'm finally getting married to Scott. Don't worry, we will live happily together. My brother assures me that Scott is trustworthy and that we will have a wonderful life together. We're excited to start this new chapter and build a happy future. I know it's safe, but there's still this uneasy feeling I can't quite put into words. What is this feeling? Hey John, I hope it's not too forward of me to ask, but could the four of us visit the grave on our next day off? I'd really like to meet your parents too. Scott, you're such a kind guy. Hey brother, you're going to make me cry again. Haha, thanks to Scott's thoughtful suggestion, we've decided to spend our next day off visiting her parents' grave. It's something that feels both important and right to do. Even though my brother recently broke off his engagement, he's managed to stay his usual cheerful self, which is comforting to see. He's been so strong through everything, and I hope that one day a wonderful person will come into his life. Someone who will make him the happiest man in the world. He deserves so much joy and love. As I thought about this, I realized my brother likely felt the same way. He's always been someone who looks out for others, and it's clear he wants the best for everyone around him. When I look up at the sky, it's a bright, clear blue without a single cloud in sight. There's something so peaceful about it, and it feels like the perfect setting for what we're planning. Watching my brother as he gazes up at the sky, I can't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude for everything he's done for me. He's always been there, looking out for me and making sure I was taken care of. I silently thank him in my heart, appreciating all the love and support he's given me over the years. As we plan our visit, I think about how meaningful it will be. Visiting the grave is not just about paying respects. It's about connecting with the past and honoring the memories of those who came before us. After Ryan and Lisa came back for the birth of their baby, my mother-in-law coldly told me to leave. She said her oldest son and his wife would arrive in 5 days and that I should go. I was shocked and confused. Leave, I asked. Yes, we don't need you to act like a mother here anymore. You're not needed. Ryan and his family will stay here. Please leave by tomorrow, she said. I always felt like I wasn't really part of the family since I married. Being treated as less than a wife, I never thought they would ask me to leave. She called me a failure for not being able to have children and told me I should be thankful for what I had. She hinted that my husband was also fed up with me. I'm Patricia Crow. After hearing this, I realized there was no need to pretend everything was okay with my husband if this was all planned without him. My mother-in-law started this, but I don't care about what happens to the house anymore. I hope they realize what they've ignored for so long. I'm 48, living with my husband and his mother near a train station, which makes it easy to get to the city center. My husband, Sen, who is 6 years older and has been promoted recently, wanted a big apartment despite the high rent. Seeing who I met through a friend and married after 3 years, despite my inability to have children, has always been kind. He has a son, Ryan, from his previous marriage. Sen asked me to live with his family and son, even though it was a big ask for someone who's never been married before. He said he'd make me happy and not let me suffer. My husband thought we should move to a big apartment where I could have my own space. Ryan, who is turning 8, wouldn't need much looking after because my mother-in-law was there to help. After splitting from his first wife, my husband's parents helped him with taking care of Ryan at their place. Sadly, Sen's dad died in an accident a few years later, and his mom started looking after Ryan full-time. Ryan was shy and didn't look at me much at first, but I thought it was just because he was getting older and maybe felt awkward. I was happy as long as they let me be part of their family. My mother-in-law seemed nice and polite when we first met. Right after I got engaged to Sen, she acted so friendly I thought we'd get along well living together. She said she'd keep making meals, and Sen often came home late, so it was fine if we didn't eat together. She told me to handle cleaning and laundry, hoping we'd work well together. After we married, I cut down my hours at the pharmacy so I could share in the household chores. I started work late, not getting home until around 9 p.m., but dinner was always ready. However, I usually ate alone since my mother-in-law and Ryan had their dinner earlier. Even though I was married, I sometimes wondered if that was all there was to it, but I accepted that this was just how our family worked. It became clear my mother-in-law didn't really like me or see me as part of the family. I tried to connect with Ryan, asking about his school events, hoping we could all go together. But when Ryan hesitated, my mother-in-law quickly said it would just be her and Sen, not me. I thought she was trying to be nice at first, but I was wrong. I can take the day off work so we can all go together, I suggested, but she said there was no need because she and Sen had always been the ones to go with Ryan. I was really surprised. When I talked to my husband about it, he said his mom was very attached to Ryan and might think I was trying to take him away. He promised to speak to her about it. I started to go to school events as a stepmom, but Ryan and I didn't spend much time together. Sometimes I felt like Ryan wanted to talk to me, but my mother-in-law always interrupted. I later learned she had been saying bad things about me to Ryan, like I would be happier without him. She made it seem like I was a bad person, which could easily make a young boy distrust me. I was shocked because I never thought she would do something like that. After Ryan finished high school, he moved out to live with his girlfriend and left for college soon after starting his job. He married her quietly and moved away. Once Ryan was gone, my mother-in-law stopped doing any housework and seemed to enjoy making my life difficult. She stopped cooking and would wait for me to make dinner, even though I was not good at it. She would watch me cook and then criticize the food, saying it was terrible. She even said it was good that Ryan never had to eat my cooking. If she didn't like my cooking that much, she could cook herself, but it seemed like she just wanted to criticize me. It wasn't just the cooking she complained about. Everything I did, from cleaning to laundry, she criticized, asking if my family ever taught me anything. She made me feel bad about myself, even criticizing my family. In my frustration, I tightly clenched my fists. My mother-in-law often said harsh things to me, like questioning how I managed to win Sen's heart when she saw little appeal in me as a woman. She repeatedly blamed me for Ryan's departure, insinuating that if I hadn't entered their lives, they wouldn't be suffering from what she implied was empty nest syndrome, a term used to describe the loneliness parents may feel when their children move out. I tried to convince myself that if venting her frustrations on me made her feel any better, then I could endure it for the sake of family peace. However, her negative attitude towards me intensified with the news of Ryan's wife, Lisa, being pregnant. The joy my mother-in-law showed upon hearing about the pregnancy was beyond anything I had witnessed before. She was ecstatic about the arrival of her first grandchild, saying it was bound to be adorable because it was Ryan's. The excitement she and Ryan shared was understandable, but her behavior seemed excessive. After Ryan asked if Lisa could have the baby at our place, given the distance to Lisa's family home and their lack of nearby support, my mother-in-law's enthusiasm knew no bounds. She immediately started preparations, from cleaning out Ryan's old room to listing all the necessary baby items. It was as if she was hit by a wave of great-grandchild fever. Naturally, these preparations meant more work for me. Coming home from work today, I was greeted with a list of tasks. Vacuuming, wiping floors, cleaning windows, and even waxing them, all in preparation for a department store trip to look at baby cribs. The physical toll of cleaning and waxing late into the night after already long days at work was daunting. Any attempt to cut corners was met with demands to redo the work. To make matters worse, my mother-in-law began requesting money for the baby preparations, leading to our house quickly becoming cluttered with baby items. When I suggested that it might be excessive to prepare so much before Lisa and Ryan's arrival, and that perhaps we should wait to choose items with them, my mother-in-law accused me of being cold and uncaring. She pointed out that I wasn't related to Ryan by blood, as if that explained my supposed lack of interest. I tried to argue that it wasn't about not caring, but rather thinking that Lisa might want to be involved in selecting items for her baby. Yet my words fell on deaf ears. My mother-in-law's harsh judgment stung deeply. The accusation that I didn't care about Sen's grandchild was unfair. My intention was to respect Lisa's role as the mother and include her in the preparations, a sentiment that seemed lost on my mother-in-law. This ongoing conflict, marked by accusations and misunderstandings, only deepened the divide between us, making an already challenging situation even more difficult to navigate. I tried to make a fair point, but my mother-in-law looked at me with a sharp glare. I realized I might have been too blunt, and she left the room upset without saying anything. I thought about what happened, but I was also surprised by the way she spoke about the situation. The next day, she stayed in her room, probably still mad. Sen was leaving for a business trip and just shouted his goodbye through her door, telling me not to dampen her excitement about the grandchild. Since Ryan moved out, she's been different. After Ryan moved out, he reminded me of our financial worries. But when I mentioned we should save money for when Ryan and Lisa arrive, Sen misunderstood, thinking I was criticizing his income. He left upset, and it reminded me how discussions about money always seem to end badly. Managing our finances, I've always planned for our future. Sen has given me a comfortable life, and he said my part-time job was just for my personal spending. I've saved everything extra, considering it shared even though it's in my name. But Sen's salary has decreased over the past 6 years, and with his company struggling, he's not thinking of changing jobs to maintain appearances. Now I pay the rent while he covers our daily expenses, a fact we hide from my mother-in-law to protect Sen's pride. I came home early one day to apologize to my mother-in-law. She was waiting for me and didn't respond to my apology. Instead, she shocked me with news that Ryan and Lisa were coming back for their baby's birth, and I had to leave in 5 days. Confused and stunned, I didn't know what to say. "I must leave?" I asked. She confirmed firmly, "Yes, we no longer require another motherly presence. Your role has been redundant for some time. Ryan and his family will be residing here. Ensure that you have vacated by tomorrow," she said. Her words struck me like a thunderbolt, making it painfully clear that I had never been truly welcomed as a member of the family from the moment I married into it. Always viewed as an outsider, the announcement of Ryan's return for the birth of his child underscored this fact unequivocally. "You barren failure," my mother-in-law persisted. "You were afforded the opportunity to partake in child-rearing. Be appreciative of that. We have no further responsibility towards you. It appears Sen, too, has grown weary of you. Perhaps he's already finding solace with a new companion." Shocked by her insinuations, I swallowed hard. The possibility that my relationship with Sen could be unraveling filled me with dread. Was this a meticulously laid trap I had naively walked into, assuming my husband's fidelity was unshakable? It dawned on me that up until the previous year, Sen had never been away on overnight business engagements. Resolute, I declared, "I'll leave tonight," as I grabbed my bag and exited the house, embarking on an aimless stroll to soothe my tumultuous emotions. Despite the sting of my mother-in-law's words, I yearned to hear Sen's voice to confirm his whereabouts directly from him. Yet my attempts to reach him by phone were fruitless. He did not respond to my calls. In a bid for clarity, I contacted his office only to discover he had requested a few days off. The reality of my mother-in-law's allegations began to weigh heavily on me. Could Sen truly be spending his time away with another woman? As despair enveloped me, tears cascaded down my cheeks. I meandered through the streets, barely aware of my surroundings, until a familiar sight halted my aimless wandering. The tavern located behind the station, a haunt Sen and I frequented in the early days of our life here. "It's still here," I mused, stepping into the familiar warmth of the tavern. The owner's initial surprise at seeing me quickly turned into recognition. "Hey, long time no see." "It's been about 6 years," I remarked, trying to bridge the chasm of time since our last visit. "Yes, it's been quite a while." "I remember you," he responded, his acknowledgement bringing a small smile to my face amid the swirling chaos of my thoughts, seeking a slice of normalcy. I asked, "Could I have a beer?" "And a mixed plate of grilled chicken, please." The tavern owner, a man of few words, nodded in agreement. In that moment, amidst the turmoil of my personal life, the simple act of ordering a meal I once enjoyed with a scene offered a fleeting rest. Despite a brief escape from the harsh reality waiting for me outside the tavern's comforting confines. As I sat in the dimly lit tavern, the cold beer and the aroma of grilled chicken offered a brief respite from the turmoil that had engulfed my life. Glancing at my phone, the screensaver, a photo of us smiling during Ryan's 16th birthday celebration, reminded me of better times. Dressed sharply in the suit we had chosen together, we looked like a close-knit family. I longed for those days, the simplicity of our relationships before the chasms had widened. The beer seemed to carry away the day's tension, prompting contemplation of the immediate future. Should I leave tomorrow as demanded? With a sense of purpose, I began searching for moving companies online, identifying one that could undertake the task the next day. My thoughts drifted to practicality, leading me to also look up companies that bought unwanted items, bookmarking 2 possibilities. A simple action, changing the screensaver on my phone, seemed to momentarily clear the fog in my mind. The food and drink tastes especially good, a comfort in the midst of chaos. I decided to table further decisions until after I'd left the tavern's comforting cocoon. Upon leaving, a surprise awaited me. A young waitress from the tavern, breathless from catching up, called out to me. Recognizing me from the screensaver image on my phone, she hesitated before dropping a revelation that shattered any remnant of denial I harbored. My husband was involved in an affair with 2 of their employees. We exchanged contact details. She promised to keep me informed, offering a cold comfort. The seeds of doubt planted by my mother-in-law's insinuations had sprouted into a stark reality. Rather than succumb to sadness, a fierce determination took root within me. It was time to face this betrayal head-on. Deciding to act swiftly, I arranged for a moving company to facilitate my departure. If this betrayal involved my mother-in-law and Ryan as well, then my ties to my husband were irreparably severed. Returning home, I spent the night packing, a physical manifestation of the emotional distance that had grown between us. The moving company was punctual, a small mercy in the whirlwind of change. As they removed my belongings, every item carried a piece of my presence, now being systematically erased. My mother-in-law's panic at the unfolding scene was palpable, yet my resolve was unshakable. I'm taking everything I've bought. Tomorrow, you can start anew, I declared, my voice steady, a hint of mirth suppressed at her evident dismay. Her protest fell on deaf ears as I directed the movers to continue. The house was stripped bare of my influence, leaving only the baby items and her ancient dresser as silent witnesses to the end of an era. Well then, I bid you farewell, I said, my parting words marking the closure of this chapter of my life. There should be no trace left, so enjoy your life with Sen, Ryan, and his family. Leaving her in stunned silence, I placed the keys on the table and exited, the finality of the gesture not lost on me. The movers stored my belongings temporarily, offering a brief pause in the rush of change. I decided to stay with a colleague, a single beacon of stability. That night, as I lay in a borrowed bed, a sense of completion washed over me. For the first time in a long while, I slept soundly, my dreams free from the shadows that had loomed so large. A week later, the distance from those tumultuous events afforded me a clearer perspective. The steps I had taken, though drastic, were necessary. In that decisive act of leaving, I had reclaimed a part of myself, stepping into an uncertain yet hopeful future. After a while, I finally got a call from my husband. I was already wondering if he was involved with another woman during this time. The young waitress from the tavern reached out to me with a message. She had taken a photo of my husband talking to another woman, not exactly young, at the tavern. It seemed like she wanted to do the right thing by sending me this. After following them when they left the tavern, she also sent a photo of them going into a hotel. Seeing this, any love I still had for my husband disappeared. I got the woman's name from the waitress and found out where she lived. Armed with all this evidence, my husband called me. "Patricia, where are you?" "Ryan and his family are here. Aren't you coming back soon?" I told him no, I wasn't coming back because his mom had kicked me out and now Ryan and his family were moving in. It seemed Ryan and his family were struggling financially, bouncing between jobs and now working part-time. My husband tried to convince me to return, saying he missed me, but I told him I was fine and didn't need to worry about me. I mentioned how his mom and Ryan didn't like me and probably preferred having the place to themselves. My comment made my husband silent. He knew his family didn't accept me, but he had ignored it. He said he had something important to say and would come back to talk a few days later. I visited the house for the first time in a while. There were new furniture and appliances. Ryan and Lisa barely acknowledged me, just nodding without getting up from the sofa as I sat down. My mother-in-law stared at me fiercely, making the air heavy with tension. Ryan then accused me of taking everything from the house, asking how I could do such a thing when his dad had been supporting me. I explained calmly that I took everything because I had paid for it. "I just did what you wanted by removing all my stuff," I said. "You must think it's crazy, believing I couldn't possibly afford all those things with just a part-time job at the pharmacy," my husband remarked, looking a bit puzzled. Then he seemed to accept the situation, saying that we had been managing both our incomes for a while. But then I had to explain further. Sen's job wasn't doing well, and his pay had decreased a lot for the last 6 years. I've been the one filling in the financial gaps, and now I'm even paying our rent. My mother-in-law was surprised to hear this and looked at my husband. I clarified, I'm not just working part-time as a pharmacist. I actually earn quite well now, even more than Sen at this. My husband avoids my gaze, and my mother-in-law didn't know where to look. I then told Ryan that he would need to start paying the rent if he was going to live here. "After all the support you've received, it's time you took care of things," I said. Ryan was shocked when I mentioned the rent was $7,500. "Good luck," I added, telling him I no longer had any responsibilities here since my role seemed to be over. Ryan couldn't believe it, and Lisa was upset, asking, were we not supposed to live here for free? The thought of them covering rent and other costs seemed to surprise them. I couldn't help but almost laugh, suggesting they could always find a cheaper place since Sen still had a decent income. This seemed to calm Lisa a bit until I hinted about leaving Sen, especially with his new situation involving another woman. That's when Lisa broke down crying, and my husband was confused, asking what she meant. Lisa explained that she had heard about the other woman from his mother. It seemed like it was time for me to end my role as a wife as well. My husband seemed to think there was no proof of his affair, unaware that I knew more than he thought, and it hadn't even been 7 days since the whole situation blew up. I decided to leave the house. Mentioning Sandra's name made my husband realize I knew everything, I said. He looked defeated, understanding this wasn't the right time for a divorce discussion. "I'll be leaving now." "If you want to talk, use a lawyer," I said. My husband, Sen, and Ryan didn't say anything as I got up to leave. My mother-in-law stood up too, angrily blaming me for everything wrong in the house. I responded frustrated, reminding her that she was the one who told me to leave and mentioned Sen's affair. "You had been meddling too much," I said. I wish I had been firmer about my relationship with Ryan, not letting her get in the way. "Ryan has nothing to do with this, Sen. You should be there for him," she said confusingly, trying to shift blame. If she hadn't brought Ryan back or hinted at Sen's affair, I would still be supporting Sen in this house. It was always her causing trouble. As I left the room, my mother-in-law was silent and shaking with anger. After that, Sen agreed to the divorce without much resistance. The evidence of his affair was undeniable. They soon started moving out, and Ryan and Lisa returned to their own place, leaving my mother-in-law alone. Sen thought about remarrying, but Sandra, his new partner, was upset about the alimony and didn't want to live with his mother. There were talks of placing my mother-in-law in a care facility, which felt sad considering everything she did for her family. It seemed like everyone was ready to move on without her after everything that happened. Ryan sent me an apology letter acknowledging the situation. In his letter, Ryan shared how he wished he had been pampered more as a kid. He said he couldn't talk to me because his grandma didn't like it, and he was really happy when I came to his school events. It made me think that maybe I should have tried harder to connect with him. Perhaps then our relationship could have been better. Even though we're not close anymore, I still hope Ryan finds happiness. I'm back working as a pharmacist and found a new apartment near my job. I didn't feel right keeping the furniture and stuff I took from the house, so I had a junk removal service called Take It All Away. Life is much nicer without my mother-in-law causing trouble. For now, I just want to focus on being happy for myself. My name's Helen. I'm your run-of-the-mill 30-year-old economist living a life as ordinary as the next person. You wouldn't pick me out of a crowd. Average height, average weight, brown hair, brown eyes. I'm as regular as they come. I've always been a wallflower in the world of romance, never quite stepping into the spotlight. Men never seem to find me particularly captivating, and to be honest, I didn't mind. I had my job at a big company, my ever-growing collection of books, and my small but tight-knit group of friends to keep me company. One day, my friends who were more outgoing than I could ever hope to be, decided that I needed to get out more. "Helen, you've got to get out of that shell of yours," they'd said. And despite my protests, I found myself agreeing. So I went, fully expecting to spend the evening tucked away in a corner with a glass of wine for company. At the party, amidst the cacophony of loud music and louder conversations, I noticed a tall figure weaving his way through the crowd towards me. It was a man, and not just any man. This guy was the kind of handsome that made you do a double take. His name was Ryan, and he had a certain charisma about him that was hard to ignore. I was surprised when he approached me. Men like him didn't usually notice women like me. "Hey, mind if I crash here?" he asked, pointing to the vacant chair next to me. His voice was deep, and his tone was casual, like we'd been buddies for years. I looked around, thinking he must have mistaken me for someone else. "Me?" I asked, pointing to myself. He let out a hearty laugh that somehow managed to rise above the party's noise. "Yeah, you. You ain't holding this seat for some knight in shining armor, are you?" "No, not at all," I replied, still taken aback by his forwardness. "Please have a seat." And so he did. We started chatting, and I was taken aback by how easily the conversation flowed. He was an engineer, had an odd fondness for 19th century literature, and his sense of humor was as dry as a bone. He was easy to talk to, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was being seen. "Helen, can I ask you something?" he asked a couple of hours into our conversation. "Sure, Ryan, what's on your mind?" "Why are you single? I mean, you're intelligent, you've got a wicked sense of humor, and you're not half bad to look at." "Yeah, don't give me that look." "You're a catch," he said as I started to protest. I blushed, not used to such compliments. "I guess I haven't found the right guy yet." I gave him a knowing smile. "Well, maybe your luck's about to turn." We exchanged numbers that night, and he called me the very next day, asking me out. I said yes. Ryan and I were like two peas in a pod. We hit it off right from the get-go and soon found ourselves in a whirlwind romance. He was attentive, remembered the little things that mattered to me, like how I liked my coffee black with 2 sugars, or that I preferred scrambled eggs over fried. He even remembered the names of all the characters from my favorite book series, which was no small feat. I was falling for him, and falling hard. One day, he decided it was time for me to meet his folks. His mom, Martha, was as sweet as pie, and his dad, George, was a quiet man who let his actions do the talking. Their house was a cozy little place filled with pictures of Ryan from his childhood to his graduation. It was clear they were proud of their boy. "Helen, you've snagged yourself a good one," Martha said, patting my hand. "We're glad our boy found you." George, a man of few words, just nodded in agreement. You look after him, and he'll do the same for you. Their words touched me, and I felt a sense of belonging. It was like I'd been a part of their family all along. A few months into our relationship, Ryan threw me for a loop. We were having dinner at our favorite restaurant when he suddenly got down on one knee. "Helen, will you marry me?" he asked, his eyes filled with hope. I was taken aback. We hadn't been dating for long, but it felt right. I looked into his eyes and saw a future I wanted to be a part of. "Yes, Ryan, I'll marry you." Our wedding was a simple affair, just the way I liked it. We didn't need a big, fancy shindig. We just needed each other. My dad was over the moon. He took to Ryan like a duck to water and was thrilled to see his little girl so happy. "You've done good, Helen," he said, giving Ryan a hearty pat on the back. "Look after my girl." "I will, sir," Ryan replied, a serious look on his face. The wedding was more beautiful than I could have ever imagined. I was never the type to dream about a big white wedding, but I found myself loving every minute of it. The dress, the flowers, the vows. It was all perfect. I felt beautiful, loved, and happier than I'd ever been. I was marrying the man I loved, and I couldn't wait to start our life together. As we were leaving the church hand in hand, Ryan turned to me and said, "Helen, I've been thinking. I want us to move in with my folks. They ain't getting any younger, and they could use our help." I was surprised, but I agreed. I liked Martha and George, and I wanted to do my part. I was ready to start this new chapter of our lives. Little did I know, things were about to take a turn I never saw coming. We packed up our stuff and moved into Ryan's parents' old house. The place was ancient, a relic from another era, and it showed. The paint was peeling off the walls, the floors creaked with every step, and the roof leaked when it rained. But it was home, Ryan's childhood home, and now it was ours. Martha and George were over the moon to have us. They showered us with love and affection, so much so that it sometimes felt like they were laying it on a bit thick. But I shrugged it off, figuring they were just happy to have us around. "Darn good to have you here, Helen," George would say, clapping me on the shoulder with a grin. "The house has been too quiet without you." Martha, always the doting mother, would fuss over us, making sure we were comfortable and had everything we needed. "You two just make yourselves at home," she'd say, bustling around the kitchen. "This is your home now, too." I was touched by their warmth and generosity, even if it did feel a bit over the top at times. I felt like I was part of their family, and I was excited about starting this new chapter of our lives. But then, a few weeks into our stay, Ryan dropped a bombshell. We were sitting at the dinner table, picking at our food, when he cleared his throat and said, "Helen, we need to talk." I looked up, surprised. Ryan was usually so easygoing, so laid back. To see him so serious was unsettling. "What's up?" I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. "The house needs repairs, Helen. Serious repairs. The roof, the plumbing, the wiring, it's all shot. Mom and Dad can't afford to fix it." I was taken aback. I knew the house was old, but I didn't realize it was in such bad shape. "So what do we do?" I asked, my mind racing. Ryan looked at me, his eyes pleading. "I was thinking maybe we could help. Use my salary and part of your savings to pay for the repairs." I was floored. My savings were meant for our future, for a house of our own, for our kids' education. To spend it on fixing up Ryan's parents' house, it was a lot to ask. But then Martha started crying, and George looked at me with such hope in his eyes. I couldn't say no. So I agreed. I agreed to use my savings to fix up the house. It was a tough decision, one that I wasn't entirely comfortable with. But I did it for Ryan, for Martha and George. I did it because it was the right thing to do. The moment the renovations on the old house kicked off, the bills started rolling in like an avalanche. Every damn day, there was a new expense, another problem that needed fixing. The roof was leaking, the plumbing was shot, the wiring was a fire hazard. The costs were piling up faster than a snowdrift in a blizzard. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of dealing with contractors and arguing over bills, Ryan and I sat down at the kitchen table, our heads in our hands. The burden of our financial troubles was bearing down on us like a 2-ton weight, and we were both feeling the strain. "Helen, we're in deep," Ryan said, his voice heavy with worry. "These damn repairs, they're sucking us dry. We can't keep this up." I sighed, rubbing my temples. "I know, Ryan, I know, but what choice do we have? We can't just stop now. The house is a wreck. It's not safe for your folks." Ryan nodded and then dropped another bombshell. "Helen, there's something else," he said, avoiding my gaze. "I've been demoted at work. My pay's been slashed. I can't put in as much for the repairs as we planned." I was floored. "What? When the hell were you going to tell me this, Ryan?" I asked, my voice rising in disbelief. "I didn't want to stress you out more," he said, finally meeting my gaze. "I thought I could handle it." "Well, you thought wrong," I snapped, my anger flaring up. "Now what are we going to do?" We were in a real tight spot. My savings were dwindling, the bills were piling up, and now Ryan was pulling back on his share. I felt like I'd been sucker punched. Martha and George, Ryan's folks, were worried too. They could see the stress etched on our faces, hear the worry in our voices. They felt guilty, I could tell. They didn't want to be a burden, but they didn't know how to help. One evening, after yet another heated discussion about money, George pulled me aside. "Helen," he said, his voice gruff, "I want you to know we appreciate everything you're doing for us. We know it's hard on you." I looked at him, tears welling up in my eyes. "George, it's not your fault. We want to help. We just didn't realize how much it would cost." George nodded, his eyes sad. "I know, Helen. I know, and we're grateful. But we don't want you two to ruin yourselves over this. It's not worth it." I hugged him, tears streaming down my face. "George, you're family. You're worth it." Despite the financial strain, despite the stress and worry, I didn't regret our decision. We were helping Martha and George, and that was what mattered. Money was tight, yes, and times were tough, but we were doing the right thing. We were taking care of our family, and that was priceless. In the end, we managed to scrape by. We tightened our belts, cut back on our expenses, and did everything we could to save money. It was hard, but we made it work. We finished the repairs, and the house was safe and comfortable once more. To celebrate, my in-laws, Martha and George, threw a fancy dinner. The food was great, the wine was flowing, and everyone was in high spirits. But then, out of nowhere, Martha started sobbing, her tears falling onto the white linen tablecloth. "We've done something terrible," she sobbed. Her voice choked with emotion. "We mortgaged the house. 200 grand. We have 2 months to pay it back, or we lose everything." The room plunged into stunned silence. The words hung in the air like a thick fog, obscuring the joy and mirth that had filled the room just moments ago. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, the magnitude of the situation sinking in. 200 grand, the number seemed astronomical, a figure so large it was hard to comprehend. "Why would you do something like that?" I managed to ask, my voice barely audible over the deafening silence. The question hung in the air unanswered as Martha continued to sob inconsolably. George finally spoke. "We didn't have a choice, dear," he said, his voice somber. Some years ago, I got into a difficult situation. It was a matter of life or death. We thought we could handle it, but we were wrong. As the reality of the situation began to sink in, I turned to my husband, Ryan, seeking some form of reassurance. But he just sat there, his face as white as the pristine tablecloth, his eyes wide with shock. "We're screwed," he finally muttered, his voice barely a whisper. "We can't pay that back. Not in 2 months." Then, as if a switch had been flipped, Ryan's demeanor changed. His shock gave way to a cunning glint in his eyes. "Your dad could help us out, right, Helen?" he said. "He's got money." I felt a wave of disbelief wash over me. "You want me to ask my dad for money?" I asked incredulously. "That's your solution?" Ryan's face hardened, his eyes cold and calculating. "Why not? He's got more than enough. He wouldn't even miss it." "I can't believe you're suggesting this," I retorted, my temper flaring. "My dad worked hard for his money. It's not our place to ask him for help." Suddenly, Martha and George were on Ryan's side, their faces morphing from loving parents into stern accusers. "Don't you care about us, Helen?" Martha asked, her voice filled with disappointment. "Don't you want to help us?" The pressure was immense. I felt cornered, trapped. "Of course I care, but—" My voice trailed off. "But nothing," Ryan interrupted, his voice devoid of any warmth. "You either help us or you don't. It's as simple as that." Tears welled up in my eyes, blurring my vision. I was being manipulated, coerced into making a decision I didn't want to make. But in the face of their relentless pressure, I saw no other choice. "Fine," I conceded, my voice barely a whisper. "I'll ask my dad." A wave of relief washed over Ryan's face. "Thank you, Helen. You're saving us." But I didn't feel like a savior. I felt like a pawn in a cruel game of chess, maneuvered and manipulated at will. As I looked around the room at the faces of my new family, a pang of regret pierced my heart. What had I gotten myself into? The night that was supposed to be a celebration had turned into a nightmare, and I couldn't help but wonder what the future held for us. I remember the day as if it was yesterday. I was sitting across from my father, asking for a favor. I needed to borrow money to pay off my in-laws' debt. His eyes, usually full of warmth, were serious as he listened to my plea. "I'll lend them the money, Helen," he said after a long silence. "But only if Ryan signs a receipt." I was taken aback. A receipt? It seemed so formal, so cold. But I understood his reasoning. He was a businessman, after all. He believed in doing things the right way, in black and white. Ryan, however, was clearly unhappy with this decision. He grumbled and complained, but eventually agreed. He borrowed $200,000 from my father, against a receipt drawn up according to all the rules. The money was used to pay off his parents' debt for the house. And then, just as we thought things were getting better, tragedy struck. My father passed away suddenly from a heart attack. I was devastated. I had lost my rock, my support system. I had to prepare for his funeral, all while dealing with the shock and grief of his sudden passing. It was a challenging time, to say the least. One day, I returned home earlier than usual. I needed a break from the funeral preparations, from the condolences, from the sea of sorrowful faces. As I walked in, I heard voices coming from the living room. It was Ryan, Martha, and George. They were talking, their voices low and hushed. I quietly walked towards the living room, my heart pounding in my chest. I stood behind the door, listening to their conversation. They were talking about me, about the money, about the receipt. "We've done it, Ryan," I heard George say, his voice filled with glee. "We've fooled her. We've gotten the money to repair the house and pay off the debts." "I'm tired, Dad," Ryan replied, his voice full of disgust. "I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of living with her. I want a divorce." "But what about the receipt, Ryan?" Martha asked, her voice stern and commanding. "We need to get rid of it first," Ryan assured her confidently. "Only then can you divorce her." "Don't worry, Mom," Ryan said confidently. "I'll take care of it. I'll steal the receipt and destroy it." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They had planned this all along. They had used me, betrayed me, and now they were planning to get rid of me. I slammed the front door, pretending I had just arrived. I put on a brave face, pretending everything was fine. "Helen, dear, how are the funeral preparations going?" Martha asked, her voice dripping with fake concern. "They're going well, Martha," I replied, my voice steady. "Thank you for asking." And with that, I walked away, my mind racing. I needed to figure out my next move. I needed to protect myself, to fight back. Over the next few days, I put on a brave face. I smiled, I laughed, I played the dutiful daughter-in-law. But inside, I was seething. I was hurt, I was angry, and I was determined to make them pay. The day of my father's funeral was a blur of tears and condolences, a whirlwind of sadness that left me drained. But as the last of the mourners left and the sun began to set, the real storm was only beginning. Back at the house, Ryan, his parents, Martha, and George, and I gathered in the living room. The air was thick with unspoken words, the silence only broken by the occasional clink of ice against glass as Ryan swirled his drink. I watched them from the corner of my eye, their faces a mask of sympathy and concern. But I knew better. Suddenly, Ryan broke the silence. "Helen," he said, his voice cold and hard, "you need to leave." I turned to him, feigning surprise. "What?" I asked, my voice shaky. "You heard me," he said, his voice even colder. "You need to leave. This is my parents' house, and you're not welcome here anymore." Martha and George nodded in agreement, their faces hard. "We've put up with you for long enough, Helen," Martha said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "But we don't need you anymore." "And what about the house?" I asked, pretending to be shocked. "The money I lent you for the house." Martha laughed, a harsh, cruel laugh that echoed around the room. "This house," she scoffed. "This house is ours, Helen, and you have no place here." Ryan joined in her laughter, a cruel smile playing on his lips. "And about that money, Helen," he said, his voice filled with mockery. "I found those receipts at your father's house, and I destroyed them." His words hung in the air, a declaration of his deceit. But instead of breaking down, instead of giving in to despair, I did something unexpected. I laughed. My laughter filled the room, a stark contrast to the heavy silence. Ryan, Martha, and George stared at me, their faces a picture of shock and confusion. You knew." Ryan stammered, his face pale. I nodded, my laughter subsiding. "I knew," I said, my voice steady. "I knew about your plans, about your deceit." But the receipts," George stammered, his face pale. "We destroyed them." I shook my head, a smile playing on my lips. "Those were just copies, George," I said calmly. "The real ones are with my lawyer." Ryan and George exchanged a glance, their faces pale. I could see the fear in their eyes. They knew they were cornered. Do you want the money back?" Ryan asked, his voice shaky. "I want it back, Ryan," I said firmly. "And I want it now. Otherwise, I'm going to the police." Ryan and George paled even more, their eyes wide with fear. "Helen, please," George pleaded. We can work something out." I shook my head, my resolve unwavering. "No, George," I said firmly. You had your chance. Now it's time to pay. After a long silence, Ryan finally spoke. We give you the house," he said, his voice shaky, "in exchange for the IOUs." I nodded, satisfied. "Good," I said calmly. "I'll have my lawyer draw up the papers." And with that, I stood up and walked out of the room, leaving them in stunned silence. I had done it. I had confronted them. I had exposed their deceit. I had won. A few weeks later, I watched from the window as Ryan and his parents packed their belongings into a moving van. They were leaving their home, their house, my house now. I couldn't help but smile as I watched them drive away, their faces a picture of defeat. I was free, free from their manipulation, free from their deceit. I had won. I had taken back control of my life. And as I closed the door to my new house, I knew that I was finally ready to move on, to start a new chapter in my life. So as the sun set and the stars began to twinkle in the sky, I sat down in my new living room, a sense of peace washing over me. I had faced my fears. I had stood up for myself. I had won. I was stronger than I had ever been. I was a survivor, a fighter, and I was ready for whatever came next.